Welcome to the engineering class, the engineering technology class, the one for ninth graders, for December the 9th. So I have looked over the homework that most of you submitted. I haven't had a chance yet to look at everything, but I have looked at several of them. And it looks like you guys understood pretty well what needed to be done. I'd like to just use a few examples here, show you a few things that I thought were really well done, and a few things that I thought were there was a little bit of room for improvement. If yours is one of the ones that I pick as an example where there's a little bit of room for improvement, please understand that I don't mean to be picky, and I am going to give you credit. I mean, as long as you guys did what I asked for, I'll give you full credit. Here, let me show you exactly what I mean here. So let me share my screen with you. And let's look at one example. Okay, so this is one of the examples that was submitted. And so you see a couple things about this. So first off, this thing right that you see, this thing that you see right here, okay, we have a disk that's just kind of floating out there in space. So apparently what happened was that they were creating a disk and they had one left over and just didn't delete it. I'm not going to take off any points for that. That's okay. I mean, it would be better if you cleaned up there. Okay, so a couple other things that you're going to notice as you look around here is you'll see that the lights on the right side don't quite match with the lights on the left side. The one on the left there is a little higher. And over here, you can see that light up top there isn't even round, it's kind of oval. Now, I didn't specify that it had to be a perfect traffic light. So if you are the person who did this traffic light, I am going to give you full credit. Because I did not say it had to be everything perfect on it. So I'll give you full credit for it. But next time around, I am going to expect a higher level of perfection. So this guy that you see right here, this guy that's not really round, he's more of an oval. Okay, so we definitely need to fix that. And then a couple other things. So the lights, like the red lights, the ones up on top here. Let's see, let me turn on annotation to make it a little bit easier to point things out. Okay, so now first off, the color, as you guys have discovered, even though your traffic lights looked beautiful and had the right colors and everything in your original file, when you saved it as an STL file, all of the colors disappeared. Okay, so you did not do anything wrong. That's a Tinkercad problem. If we had paid the money to get one of those really expensive CAD programs, then we would have been able to save it without losing all of the colors. And in fact, even with Tinkercad, if we were to save it in a different format, we could save it without the colors. But if you save it in the STL format, then you lose the colors. That's just part of how it works. Okay, so don't worry about the fact that the colors are gone. But so you guys all know that this one here corresponds to the red one. This is the yellow one. And this, of course, was the green one. Okay, now this red light here and this red light here, they're not even with each other. This guy over here is up higher than the one on the right. So for what I asked you to do last time, fine, I'm not going to take off any points. But next time around, when we do the assignment for real, I do expect that these guys should be even with each other, these should be even with each other, and these should be even with each other. Okay. And so let's see what else. Now, as we go around here, you'll see that there's this funny kind of a crack right here. You see that crack? Okay. So something went wrong there. So I'm not quite sure what you did or how you did it, but clearly you've got a little piece in there that shouldn't be there. So that needs to be fixed. Another thing here is that your circles are not actually circles. they've got these flat sides. Now, this is something that I didn't talk about last time. And so I'm definitely not going to ding you for it. But let's talk about it right now. Okay, so let's see what happens if I come over to the right here and I bring in a cylinder. Okay, so if I were to focus in on that cylinder, so let me click on it and hit this. Okay, so now when we look at that cylinder, you see it's not really a perfect circle. It has a bunch of sides on it. So there's a slider right here that you can play with that will figure out how many sides. So the lowest number of sides you can have is 12. And then as you go up, you see you get more sides. So if you want it to be a perfect circle, you need to take it all the way up here. And you'll notice that even then, it's not really a perfect circle. It's actually got 64 sides. It's just that when you have 64 sides, then you don't really notice that it's not really a perfect circle anymore. So this is something that I want you to play with next time. So for this time, fine, don't worry about it. Now the bevel here is kind of interesting. Let's see how that works. Now, if I turn it on the side here, I think you'll be able to see a little better. So look what happens when I play with the bevel. You see that? So that's something that you might want to play with in some cases. Okay. Now, as far as segments go, you don't really notice any difference with segments there. Let me see if I come from the top here. Okay, so if we play with segments there, here we go. You see that? Not really much of an effect. So don't worry about the segments there, but the sides, you know, if you want it to be perfectly round, you need to slide this over to the highest possible. And even then it's not perfect, but at least it gets to be where you won't notice it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get rid of this now. I'll hit delete, and then I'll come back over to here. Whoops, sorry. Tell you what. Okay, so if I click on that and then click on this thing here. Okay, so now, all right. So so if this is yours, don't worry, I will give you full credit for it. But I hope you see that there is definitely some room for improvement. So next time around, please do the improvement. Okay, here's another one that somebody submitted. Okay, so this one, you can see in this case, they were very careful to make sure that all of the lights that should be the same height, they are. So the red light that you see here is even with that one. Okay, so all of the red lights are the same height. All the yellow lights are the same height. All the green lights are the same height. So this one here is very good. Also, when I zoom in on the circles here, you'll see that the edges, this one doesn't have as many segments as it did. You can still see it's not perfectly round. There's still a lot of segments there, but it looks a lot closer to round than that first one did. And so you'll never get it to be 100% totally round. The best you can do is just use so many segments that it looks like it's round. Okay, so this one here looks to be perfectly what I've asked for. But I don't know if you guys noticed or not. Look what happens when I turn it at this angle. You see on the top there, let me come down just a little bit here. You see what's happening? That top disc is not actually connected to the rectangular block. It's sitting up a little bit high. So they should have brought that down a little bit lower. Also, these other discs here, these guys have the same, the ones on the right side, you see they have the same problem. And for that matter, the ones on the left side have the same problem. So this disc, let me turn on annotation here. Okay. So this disc that you see right here is actually not connected to the light. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. I mean, not a major problem. I'll give you full credit for it. Don't worry about it. But next time around, that's something that you should fix. Okay. But other than that, this thing looks really, really good. I love the way that you've got all of them nice and symmetrical, all the right size. Okay, so that one looks really good. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Okay, so this person put two of them side by side. So over here, this is the basic one. Let me come over here. Okay, so this is the basic one without the shades. Okay, so you can see their discs. So they don't have the same problem as the one that we just talked about here. You can see that the discs actually are connected to the rectangular block. Okay, so that's good. If we come up above here, oops. Okay, you can see we do have a bit of problem here. That top disc there, that one, there's a gap in between. Okay, so there's a little bit of room for improvement on this one. But I mean, these are minor issues. I'm definitely going to give this person full credit. Okay, so they did the basic traffic light here really well. But in addition to the basic traffic light, they also did the more advanced version. Okay, they did the version with the shades on it, which was really cool. I was glad to see that. So this person is definitely going to get extra credit because they did the shades. All right, so you can see the way that they've done the shades here. So they took a cylinder and then they hollowed out a hole and then they cut off a little piece here. Now, when they cut it, they weren't quite as careful as they could have been. So if I zoom in on this, okay, well, I guess, so let me show you. Okay, so you look on the right side, see how thick that wall is? Look on the left side here. It's not quite as thick. So this is a really minor problem. So, you know, don't worry, I'm still going to give you full credit, plus I'm going to give you extra credit for having done this. Okay, but they were just a little bit careless here when they created the shade, but you know, that's a minor complaint. Just a little bit of room for improvement, but you know, not bad. Okay, so, and then the rest of them, you know, look kind of nice. There is something kind of funny here. You see when you look at these from the top, can you see this line? You can see these lines right here and right there. Okay, so I'm guessing that what happened there was that when they put their shade over the top of their disc, okay, you see how the disc is a little bit off center. The whoops, whoa, that's weird. That's interesting. I wasn't expecting that. Let me do a reset on that. Okay, so when they put the shade over the top of the disc, you see that they didn't quite get it centered right. And so this line that you're seeing up there is the edge of the disc sticking out a little bit of the shade. Okay, these are minor issues. So, I mean, if you were the one that did this, you can be very proud of what you did. I mean, you did really nice, and I'm very happy with it. The fact that I'm pointing out little bits of room for improvement, you know, this is your first 3D creation. I mean, this is actually a fantastic creation for your very first one. Okay, so let me show you one more here. So here's one. And so on this one, they did the advanced one with the shade. Notice the way that they did their shades was a little different than the last person did. The last one that we looked at, so let me turn it like this. Okay, so when the last person made their shades, so they did it so it cut off like this. Whereas this person, they have it off at an angle there. So either way is fine. I have no preference either on that. Okay, so when I look at this, if I zoom in, you can see that the shade looks very nice and well positioned. You see that the thickness on this side of the shade looks to be the same as the thickness on this side. So that's really good. And the disc here is nice and well centered within it. Now we can see the number of segments here. So when they made their disc, they just went with the default number of segments. They could have made it more round, but you know, I didn't tell you about that. So you know, don't worry at all that you didn't do that. Okay, so I'm thinking this one here looks really nice. Let's look at this make sure that we don't have a gap in between here like we did on the others. Okay, yep. That top piece right here is connected there. I don't see any gap there. And also, if I turn it this way, you see there's, whoops, sorry. When I go to touch the screen, if I don't turn on annotation first, sometimes it moves the screen here. So let me turn on annotation. So I don't see any gap here, any gap here. So this one here, I don't really see anything to suggest where they could have done it better. I think this one, except maybe your circles there, put more segments on your circles. That's the only thing I can think of is you can see all the different segments here. So when you bring in the circle, just don't go with the default number of segments, turn up the number of segments. But other than that, this one here looks fantastic. So yeah, this super job. So if this one is yours, yeah, you can be very proud of that one. Okay, so I see that Adam is asking me, how do you cut the cylinders? Okay, so that's a really important question. So basically what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about how to do various other things. So tell you what here, let's let me get rid of this. And so Adam wants to know how to cut the cylinder. So let's see how to do that. So first off, let's drag a cylinder and let's bring it in. And then I'm gonna bring in another cylinder. Okay. And so let's zoom in on these guys here. Okay. Now, when I brought in a cylinder, I could have brought in a whole cylinder, a cylinder that's a hole, and okay, so I could have brought it in like that. That's one way to make a hole. Now, obviously, it's not a very good hole. I need to make it a little more like that. Okay, that's one way to do it. But another way, instead of getting rid of that, what I could do is I could bring in a solid cylinder. And you notice when I click on the solid cylinder, one of my options here is to turn it from being solid into turn it to being a hole. So this over on the right here, where you have this cylinder that's a whole cylinder, he's not really necessary. You can bring in a solid cylinder, and once you've brought it in, you can turn it into a hole. And then if you select both the inner and the outer one, okay, then if you do group, okay, so now you see I've got a hole here. It's not, my inner hole is more of an oval than a circle, but hey, that's fine. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to cut that off. Okay, so here is how I can cut it off. What I can do is I can bring in a box, and then I can rotate the box, and then I can lift the box up and bring it in like this, and maybe bring it back. Tell you what, let's make the box be a little bit bigger. Okay, all right, so now, and also let's make it be, okay, let's call it like that. Okay, so now let's look at what I've got here. You see how I've got a box tilted on its side, but it's a box that's going to be a hole tilted on its side. So now if I click on this and then I hold down my shift key and click on this, now when I group them together, there you go. You see how I've cut off that side there like that. Okay, so now if I bring in a box here that's going to be my traffic light, and let's make it be a taller traffic light. Let's bring it over to the left side here so that when I click on it, it doesn't hide. Okay, so now it's a nice tall traffic light. Okay, so what I can do then is I can take this guy, click on it, use this thing to rotate it over. Okay, and now just position this guy right there. And so I see he looks like he's pretty well centered. Okay, and now what I'd like to do is just maybe move him up. And bingo, there you go. Okay, so that's how we do it. Okay. All right. So in your homework tonight, I'm going to give you free rein to where you can create pretty much anything that you want. In fact, let's go ahead and look at it and you'll see. So CAD assignment number 2, use Tinkercad to create something cool, where you get to decide what does it mean to be something cool. Now I've given you an example here. This is something that I created that I thought was pretty cool. So, but it's up to you. So just make it something cool. If you can make me say, wow, I'll give you extra credit. All I require is that it must consist of at least 3 different objects. So in my case here with my example, let me turn on annotation. You can see I've got one object here that's the lid. I've got another object here that's the main box. And then I've got all of these different pieces of candy. Each one of those pieces of candy is a different object. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I've got 10 different objects in mine. You don't need to have 10 different objects. You just need to have at least 3 different objects. And one of the objects must have a hollowed out space in it. So you can see the box here that I've created has a hollowed out space. And also the lid that I've created here has a hollowed out space. Okay. And in fact, tell you what, let's do. Let's go in and let's look at the actual file, not just a picture of the file, but let's look at the actual file so that you guys can see what I've done. Tinkercad's being a little bit slow today. Okay, so here, my heart-shaped candy box. That is the creation that I'm doing. Now, you guys, you can make whatever you want. You can make a car. You can make a robot. You can make a person. You can make whatever you want. I just want it to be, something that where it has at least 3 pieces and it has at least 1 piece hollowed out. Okay, so here is my candy box. So if I click on it and click on this, it'll center it. Okay, so if you first look at it, it's just a heart is all it is. And except when you look at it from this angle, you see there's whoops, sorry. Okay, you see that line down on the bottom there? Okay, so that leads you to be suspicious that maybe there's something more here, that maybe it's not just a solid heart, maybe there's something more to it. So let's see if we can open it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the lid, and then I'm going to click on the up arrow so that I lift it up. And sure enough, you can see that there is something inside there. There's a bunch of chocolates inside my box. And I can look at them from any angle that I want to look at them from. Okay. And if I tilt up, let me back up a little bit. There you can see the lid. So let's center the lid there. Yeah, so you can see the lid is definitely hollow. I'll lift it a little bit higher so we can see it a little bit better. Okay. Yeah, so the lid there is hollow. And then if I click on the bottom part here and center it, okay. So you can see I've got a bunch of chocolates. If I want, I can click on a chocolate and I can move it out. Okay. So it makes it a little easier to eat. And then if I click on the chocolate and click over here, so now I'm focused in on the chocolate. And you can see what I've done here. How did I make the chocolate? Basically, all I did was I dragged in a box. And whoa, that's a big box there. So that the box is a little bit bigger than I want. So let's make the box be smaller. And let me move over this side so I can, okay, so I'm going to make the box be smaller. Okay. But how did I get those rounded edges there? Well, you see all these controls that I can play with? I can play with the radius. So if I want, I can take that box and I can turn it into an oblong circle there, or have it be somewhere in between. So I kind of set it like this. And with steps is the kind of the same thing with circle. You can see I can, if I go with just one step, you see that the box has square edges there. But if I increase the number of steps, now it's got 2 steps, now it's got 3 steps. And if I go all the way over here, it's got so many steps that you don't even see the steps anymore. It looks like they're rounded. And then this thing right here allows me to play with the length and the width separately. So I get this accomplishes the same thing that if I just dragged on the little handle here. It's just a different way of doing the same thing that we did before. Okay, and then I can change the color of the box, obviously, to make it be whatever I want. Now, I like dark chocolate myself. Some of you guys might like light chocolate better, but I like dark chocolate. Now, let's play with a couple, actually with the dark chocolate is kind of hard to see. Let me make it be light chocolate just so a little easier to see what I want to show you. Let's play with a couple of the things that we have not yet played with. Let me center it so it makes it a little easier. Okay, if you scroll down here, there's a whole bunch of other shapes that we can play with that we haven't yet played with. So I'm going to play with this scribble shape here. So let me back off a bit here, and I'm going to bring this scribble shape in. Okay, and what it does is it lets me make any shape that I want here. So I'm just going to make that kind of a wiggle shape like that. All right, and I'm going to call that good. Let's see, I want to tell it that I'm done. So over on the right side here, it says that I'm done. Okay, so that it follows whatever squiggle I had. Now, what I'm going to do, I don't know if you guys, if you've ever bought expensive chocolates, then you know that on top of the chocolate, they quite often have a little design on top of the chocolate. Okay. So if I bring this squiggle on here, whoops, I didn't want to do that. Let me undo that. Okay, let's make the squiggle. Why does it not want to do that? Okay, let's just do it like that then. Okay, and let's make it be a little higher. Okay, I want my squiggle. Come on, why does my squiggle not want to go higher? What I'll do is I'll make the chocolate be a little lower there. Okay, so here's my squiggle. All right, so if I change my squiggle to make it be light brown like my chocolate, okay, and then just drop it down a little bit. Oh, the step size here is kind of big. You can make the step size be smaller if you want. So that allows me to lower it down lower. Okay, and so there you go. So if you've had chocolate candies, you know that on the top there, they quite often have those nifty little designs. Okay, so now I've got a slightly more interesting piece of chocolate. Okay, so that's one of the tools that you can play with that we haven't played with yet. Let's play with a couple more. Let's suppose that I want to write a message on my chocolate box. Okay, so let me close the lid on my chocolate box here. Okay, it's still a little bit open. Let me bring down a little more. Okay, so I've closed the lid on my chocolate box. Let's suppose that I want to write a message on the chocolate box. Well, I want to say, you know, to my sweetheart with love. You see this thing right here that says text? This is a really nice one. So I'm going to drag on text. I'm going to bring it in here. I'll kind of set it off to the side temporarily. I'll come back later and get it later. Okay, so if I click on it, the default there message, it says text, but let's change it so it says love. Okay, good. All right. And so then click on it and let's make it a little smaller so it sits on my box there. And then let's, oops. Okay, let's lift it up a little bit. And then let's put it over here. And let's center it so I can work with it a little more easily. Okay, now that sticks up way more than I want. So let's bring it down about right there. And bingo. So there we go. It now says love. Okay, and maybe I want to change want to make it rotated a little bit here. Okay, maybe like that. And bingo. So now Now I've got something written on my box there. Okay, and let's group it together with the lid so that the two of them will move together. So they are now one unit. So now when I lift up the lid, the love note goes with it. Okay, so you can see I can put text on there. See how that works. So you see over on the right here, I've got all sorts of things. I've got stars. I've got these strange different types of hedrons. I've got rings. I've got dice. I've got diamonds. Uh, I've got a whole bunch of different things that I can all play with here. Um, so what I want you guys to do now is I want you to use your creativity, and I want you to come up with something cool. And that's, the only guidelines that I have for you is there needs to be at least 3 pieces to it. More is better, but if it just has 3 pieces, that's good enough. One of those pieces needs to have a hollowed out section inside of it. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to take the other 2 pieces and put them inside of the one. You can if you want to, you don't have to. As long as one of them has a hollowed out piece, I'll call that good. And then play around with the colors. Okay, now, a couple other things that I want you to notice here. Last time when I asked you to submit the thing, the way I told you to do it was I asked you to click on the export button, and I asked you to export it as an STL file. Okay, so first off, let's talk about what is the STL file and what is it used for. So let me ask you, how many of you have a 3D printer in your home? I realize not very many people do, but some of you might. Do any of you have a 3D printer in your home? Okay, so I'm seeing some no's. Okay, so KJ says that he doesn't have one that he himself owns, but sometimes he goes to the library and he uses the libraries. Okay, very good. So KJ, tell us some more about it. So, well, first off, before KJ can go to the library to use their printer, he has to create a file for what he wants to print, what he wants to 3D print. So if I was KJ and I wanted to 3D print a box of chocolates, what I would do is I would create my chocolates here, and I would move them out. If you're going to put them, if you want to make them on a 3D printer, what you need to do is you need to separate them, because if I were to send this to the printer right now, these 2 pieces of chocolate would print them so that they are permanently attached inside the box. Now, maybe I want them to be permanently attached inside the box, but I probably don't. So what I should do then is I should move all of the pieces outside of the box. Okay, and tell you what, let's get rid of the upper one here. Let's just say I only want to print just the lower part of the box and the chocolates. Okay, so what I have now is I have a creation that if I go to export and I want to save it as an STL file, then I can take that STL file and I can take it to the library and give it to the people that run the 3D printer at the library, and they can just put it on a thumb drive and stick it in their 3D printer, and the 3D printer will then print what you see right here. Okay, and as long as these guys are separate objects the way that they are, it will print them as separate objects. Now, if I had these inside here, I'd have to be careful, because then when it prints them, these 3 pieces of candy will be permanently stuck to the box. So after it comes out of the printer, I won't be able to move them around. So I don't want to do it like that. But basically, STL files, those are the files that you use when you want to 3D print something. Okay. Now, when you guys do the homework tonight, I don't want you to send it to me as an STL file tonight. I want you to do it differently this time. So I want you to come up in the upper right here where it says send to. Okay, so I'm going to click on send to. All right. So in this case, I have an option where I can just send a picture of my creation. Okay, so if I do that, okay, what it'll do is it'll download a picture, and you see down here on the right, it has downloaded a picture, but it's just a picture. It's not actually the object that I can manipulate. It's just a picture. Now I do have a couple other options here. I can save it with a software called Autodesk Fusion 360, which is that's one of those really advanced CAD programs. And then these guys right here, these are websites where you can share 3D designs. I highly recommend you go check out these websites, Thingiverse, My Mini Factory, whatnot. If you go to thingiverse.com, you'll find out that they have thousands and thousands of really cool designs that you can just copy and paste them into your creation. This is really super cool stuff. Okay. But this is the one that I want you to note it down at the bottom. Now, you have to scroll down in order to get to it. If you scroll down to the bottom here, so you see you've got an option here that says invite people. So if we click on that, then what it's going to do is it's going to generate a link. So if I click on this, okay, then I want to copy the link. Okay, so so if I click on this link right here, okay, so that will give me a link. So I can now go into some Word document. So let's open up some sort of a Word document just so you can see what we got here. Now, it doesn't have to be Word. Actually, Canvas is where you want to go. So once you've copied the link, you're going to want to go into Canvas. But let me just show in Word. So if I do paste now, so if I do Control V for paste, or if I just come down here, paste here, this link, okay, if you send me a copy of this link in Canvas, then I will be able to open up your Tinkercad file. So it'll be more than just a picture. I will then be able to actually open up the original file. And then I will be able to look at it from all sorts of different angles here. I will be able to move it around, okay? And if you had a lid on there, I would be able to open up the lid. So this is definitely the way that you want to do this. Okay, so after you've got your creation done, so, okay, so you come over to the upper right here, click on Send To, and then scroll down to the bottom, click on Invite People, and then click on Copy Link. Okay, and then go into Canvas and then submit the link. And that's the way that you're going to do your homework tonight. Okay, that way it won't be just a picture, but I will actually be able to zoom in and zoom out and look at it from underneath, look at it from above, move things around. Okay, so I will be able to actually access your file. Now, some of you are going to say, well, Mr. Hendricks, couldn't I just go up to the top of the browser and couldn't I just copy the URL from the browser and send you that? The answer to that question is no, you cannot do that, because if you do that, when I click on the link, what's going to happen is I'm going to get an error message saying, sorry, you don't have permission to open that. Okay, only the person who owns the file, only the person who created the file would be able to open it using that link. So you guys, you could open it using that link, but I wouldn't because I don't have permission. But if you go into the one that I told you about, if you go into Send To and then go down to Invite People, okay, the link that you get from here, then I will have permission. And so then I will be able to open it. So make sure that that's the way that you do it. Okay, so in your homework tonight, you go on to Canvas. And so this is what it's going to see. And so on this page here, there will be a button that says submit. So submit it to me on Canvas via that page. All right. So does everybody understand the assignment? Okay. Now let me show you one more thing before I let you type bye into the chat box. Some of you might be saying, hey, Mr. Hendricks, I am still not comfortable using Tinkercad. You might say, is there some sort of a tutorial? Is there some sort of a a thing that I can use that will teach me about Tinkercad? The answer to that question is an emphatic yes. So when you go up to Tinkercad, when you're on this page right here where it shows all of your designs, you see in the upper right here where it says learn. Okay, so up here where it says learn, if you click on learn, then it will take you into a page here. And so what you see here, these are a whole bunch of very simple designs that you can start with, but actually the best thing to do is in the middle here. If you click on this thing that says lessons, okay, then they have a whole bunch of lessons here. And if you click on all, you'll see that there's dozens and dozens of lessons. If you scroll down, okay, and they teach you how to use Tinkercad. So if you click on any one of these lessons, then it has a little step-by-step thing that it'll take you through step by step, and it'll teach you how to use Tinkercad. So I'm not going to take the time to do it right now. Let me just, well, okay, maybe I will. So let me just show you how it works. So Tinkercad's a little bit slow here. The reason I'm hesitating is because I know Tinkercad can sometimes be kind of slow here. So, okay, it looks like it. Okay, here we go. It's coming around now. Okay, so you'll see over on the left side here, it tells you what to do. So it says in this lesson, you will learn how to design a cool pair of party glasses. So if you click on next, see, so it tells you what to do. It tells you step by step what you need to do. Okay, and so just do what it says to do, and so drag things around, and then click on next, and so it'll walk you through all the way everything that you guys need to know. So if you want to go through these tutorials, remember the way to get to them is to click on this link up here that says learn, and then click on this thing that says lessons. And also, if you play with these other things, you'll see there's a whole bunch of really great stuff. This tutorial thing here on Tinkercad is really, really good. Now, I've already taught you enough of the basics that I don't think you have to use the tutorials anymore. I think you should be able to figure stuff out on your own by now, but the tutorials are there if you want them. Okay, so again, are there any questions? Do you understand what tonight's homework is? If you do, then you can go ahead and get working on it right now. So I see we still have a half an hour left. So you can go ahead and type bye into the chat box and start working on the homework. If you do have questions, I'll go ahead and turn off the recording so that you can ask your questions without it being recorded.